Okay, welcome everybody to our webinar, The Impact on Early Stage Companies in the Age of Coronavirus. We have our panelists here. We're just going to wait for people to enter the room. It's filling up just as we speak. So we're just going to give everybody a few minutes to pop in. Okay, so just sit tight. It's like watching the votes come in for an election. Just the participant count just keeps going up and up and up.
Awesome.
All right, we'll give everybody another minute or two, and then we'll get rocking. Okay, Stephanie, you're back?
Back.
Okay. All right, one more minute. Okay, we're 2 minutes after the hour. We'll get going. So, hi everybody. My name is Mark Friedman, and I'm the president of Details Interactive, a consultancy focused on helping direct-to-consumer brands grow and enhance their business. Thank you for joining us today. We all hope that you and your families are managing through the current situation as best you can. We've put together a really good panel of people today who represent a number of early stage companies, and we've also have an investor in businesses like that. We hope to be able to share their stories and how they're thinking about the future of their businesses and how they're navigating the current scenario here. So I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves. We've got Allison Howard from Nollapelli. We've got Stephanie Hahn from Cadence, Stuart Ahlum from Thousandfell, Daniel Muller from Aeropay, and then also Tom Meyer from Nassau Street Ventures. So why don't we jump right in? Allison, why don't you start us off with your introduction, please?
Sure. Thanks so much, Mark. So again, my name is Allison Howard. I'm the founder and CEO of Nollapelli. And I was tired of waking up in the morning and looking in the mirror and not feeling or looking as refreshed as I wanted. I've got a background in engineering and started digging in to learn about what happens to your body while you sleep and the properties of the fabrics that we're hopefully spending a third of our day on in bed, and ultimately invented a fabric that works with your body. And Nollapelli now sells bedding direct to consumer and also to high-end hotels and spas.
Welcome, Allison. And Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Steph Hahn, the founder of Cadence. We're a direct-to-consumer New York startup. You can kind of think of us as the swell of portable personal care. So we believe you do it all. We're just making it easy to carry everything with you, starting with your personal care and wellness routine. Basically, we found that consumers are spending a lot of time and money on curating this routine that empowers them at home. But anytime you take the same routine and try and bring it out of home, it is no longer empowering, and it's an overall negative experience. So products are leaking, you feel cluttered, clunky, messy, and so Cadence is building the next generation of portable personal care. They're basically magnetic, sustainable products that are beautifully designed to go with you from everywhere from a date to your partner's place to a weekend away, or today, I guess, DIY projects, organizational products in home.
I think you sold a few to Allison on our
Yes,
prep call.
I know that's true.
And Stuart.
Hi, I'm Stuart Ahlum. I'm co-founder and co-president of Thousandfell. And our core mission is really to pilot, empower, and champion the circular economy, and to make it both easy and accessible, both from a price point for brands and consumers. So we started out with a line of fully recyclable and biodegradable everyday sneakers. high frequency use basic that people churn through and purchase 2 to 6 times a year. We put that on a closed loop, so we are actually able to recapture everything, catalog it, collect it, recycle it, and put it back in a new product. And Thousand Bell is also a much larger product platform where we're able to plug other brands in to power their closed loop systems as well.
Great, thanks. Welcome, Stuart. And Daniel.
Hi, everyone. Dan Muller, founder and CEO of Aeropay. So we're just really tired of the way payments works today with traditional payment methods. Our payments platform is a closed loop payments platform that enables customers to pay businesses through an instant bank transfer. The idea is we can reduce interchange fees, reduce chargebacks and security issues, and then repurpose some of those savings directly back to customers and cashback rewards. So our intent is to create a better payment method for businesses to start and then repurpose some of those benefits to customers across the board. So really happy to be here with everyone.
Welcome. And Tom.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I'm Tom Meyer. I'm the managing partner of Nassau Street Ventures, a venture capital firm. We're part of Alumni Ventures Group. We build a portfolio each year of a diverse set of venture capital investments for individuals to invest in. And then we provide value to the companies we invest in by connecting them with our community. We have over 400,000 alumni in our community. We're one of the world's most active diversified venture capital firms. Doing about a deal a day, although that's slowed in the last few weeks. We're still doing a lot. So it's great to be here and to meet some interesting companies. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That's quite deal flow, one per day, Tom. I guess you guys are busy.
It's never stops, yes.
Right. Well, one of the things that we've seen, other than, the most significant issue has been illness, but we've seen skyrocketing unemployment rates here. We've seen businesses trying to do things to preserve capital and cash. You all are, parts of small businesses, founder run for the most part. What have you guys done with respect to either reducing headcount or salary reduction, anything like that we've seen in the market? And maybe we start with Allison.
Sure. So at Nollapelli, we have always run a very lean operation and a really tight ship. So we have not let anyone go. We have not reduced any compensation. Hopefully we'll be able to maintain that, but and it's something that we're really proud of. So yeah, we're just kind of working as efficiently as we can with our small team.
All right. Anybody else have a perspective on what you've been able to do or not do?
Yeah, I can jump in and talk a little bit about how we've prepped and changed course slightly. My co-founder and I spent the better part of 3 years living and working in China. So I don't want to say that we had too much of a head start, but had a lot of friends that were already sort of experiencing a shutdown. Hey, Chloe, you're going to have to pause your video. Sorry, this is my co-founder that just jumped in. That we kind of had a bit of a head start in understanding what was happening with the slowdowns and with the shutdowns. And so what we ended up doing was connecting pretty directly with all of our strategic partners and just being very transparent about kind of where our cash position was when we were raising capital, pulling back on scope of works, both kind of in the short 8 to 12 week span, but then also putting together contingency plan should COVID kind of slow down. Chloe and I took a backseat with our kind of salary, but have kept everybody on that was kind of part of our extended team. But have really been strategic about like slowing down scopes a little bit. And then we've also pulled back. We had a lot of out of home that we had planned for April, and you can imagine that a lot of that's not rolling out. So we're able to kind of shift away from like pop-ups and our like owned retail. So that's kind of how we've handled it, and have been just, again, like keeping all of our close strategic partners, either the ones that handle content creation or the ones that handle like communications, or even paid digital, like really abreast of what we're doing, and being as transparent and open as possible on like what our burn rates are, what our cash flow is, and kind of what we're expecting as a business. And that's kind of helped.
Good. We'll come back to go-to-market strategy in a bit. Dan or Stephanie or Tom, anything you want to add?
We're seeing, across the board, our companies, tightening ship, taking this opportunity to focus and reduce costs.
Okay, so there's obviously lots of negativity, and there could be, but we try to use the cliche, turn the lemons into lemonade. So have there been anything that you've been able to see or do already, with the current landscape that you're trying to use as an advantage? And perhaps Steph, you can start there for us.
Yeah, so I guess piggybacking off of the previous question, I really felt like we're actually onboarding a lot of individuals who have wanted to work for all equity. And it's been a great time because it's already a time when I think a lot of companies are focusing on process, and founders are focusing on how to work and create a structure so they can work on the company instead of in the company. And so I've actually been thinking a lot about how it's a great time that talent, really amazing talent, is the least busy they've almost ever been, and how they really want to start to create these ties to companies that they could create, futures with, now that their future may be a little bit more uncertain. And so it's a more mutual benefit at this point. So we've actually, I felt very lucky in that respect. And then on the other side, people are home and glued to their phones more than ever. And obviously TikTok is a platform that's exploding right now. And so I've kind of seen that as an opportunity to really dive into that space. I think our product really aligns well to that audience. And so it's been a great time to get the right talent to help implement a strategy, whether that be interns or very strategic minds, and then figure out the best way to get in front of people, since everyone is on these platforms, and influencers themselves are more open to partnerships and relationships, since they're not going about their normal day-to-day, and commission-based connections are strong at the moment.
I'm reminded about my mobile usage every Monday morning from Apple. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there you go.
Anybody else? Daniel, perhaps lemons into lemonade?
Yeah, no, so it's, when this first started, it was definitely a challenging time for us. Most of our merchants and customers were using our platform based on our in-store SMB product, which is the Aeropay app. So you walk into your typical kind of coffee shop, you go into, you choose a coffee scone, and then you can pay with Aeropay as a payment method at these stores. When we're primarily live in the Midwest, and when, city of Chicago, state of Illinois announced the, restaurant retail shutdown, that was essentially an overnight, immediate kind of pivot focus for us. We knew we didn't want to jump into a new line of business right away, and the primary focus would be, how do we support the merchants on our platform? So quickly we accelerated our development roadmap on our online product that enabled us to create a virtual tip jar for every merchant on our platform. And so we waived fees for every single payment that was sent through the virtual tip jar. And in turn, what ended up happening is, word spread, and our online product started to take off and get a lot of attention. So with our, best intentions, we created a new product that's now kind of accelerated our focus into the online B2B charity donation space because of the waived fees and the easy one-click experience that we created. So definitely creating a new opportunity out of a pretty challenging time. So at the moment, we're just trying to kind of keep up with the development goals and where it's taking us, but hopefully making the best out of the opportunity.
Okay, great. Anybody else with some lemons into lemonade? Okay, go ahead.
I can chime in a little bit. I think Stephanie mentioned it as well, but a lot of our focus has been shifting from out of home to building online community. Still really a central part of kind of our core customer and that experience, but educating around the circular economy, bringing people into Slack groups, leveraging like Zoom hangouts and informational like master classes. TikTok is definitely a part of that. We had launched our sort of like initial TikTok campaign back in December when it was like just 15-year-olds dancing, which the platform has changed really quickly. So getting into that space and continuing to play in that space. I think what's really interesting and like our teams are talking about as a brand that is sustainable and that is really kind of championing the end of waste in retail is that we're seeing our target customer who's like older Gen Z, younger millennial has kind of always really cared about the environment and has been voting with their dollars in that way for a long time. But you're starting to see the individual being more thoughtful about the impact that they're having, especially sort of in this like COVID landscape, and their ability to social distance and actually make an impact in the world and like what's going on. And so we're seeing customers being much more like conscientious of what they're buying and how they're shopping, and sustainability kind of moving to the forefront and trickling into other sort of target demographics that might have had it lower on their priority in the past. So really interested to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. And then especially as we sort of come out of the shelter in place situation that we're in now, and how priorities are going to change and adjust.
I'll chime in on the education piece in particular. We at Nollapelli have also really leveraged this opportunity to do education. You know, what I found from the very beginning is that people aren't naturally thinking about the connection between their body and their bedding, but almost as soon as you say it, you can see the light bulb go off. So really just sort of leaning into that, the education on the connection between your body and your bedding, the importance of sleep and for your immune system, right? One of the most important ways to keep your immune system healthy is to make sure that you're getting a good night's sleep. And so, you know, really just working with our partners, in particular our hotel and spa partners, to push that education out now at this critical time.
I should have mentioned to the folks that are listening, we have Q&A set up in this webinar, so you're more than welcome to just open up a question, and I'll direct it to whomever you ask it of, or in general. We did have one from Michael, was around the question of talent. So it wasn't necessarily around how you're doing it just at this moment in time, but as a startup company, how are you finding talent? You know, how are you getting the people that you need? Oftentimes it could be on the product side, but oftentimes in talking with each of you and with other early stage companies, finding those growth hackers or those people that can get your message out. Stephanie, a thought?
Yeah, so I guess my first answer, what's always worked for us has been word of mouth. It's kind of made it a rule to just tell every single person I meet what I'm looking for, and surprisingly enough, it has worked out really well. Currently, more recently, in terms of the growth hacker, I actually found LinkedIn, like very pragmatically, I find like job postings on LinkedIn to be super helpful, much more so than Indeed or even AngelList. I've actually had a lot of great conversations from there. And then obviously just communicating, I mean, specifically in this time that like, obviously it's a time when startups are freezing a lot of budget, but people still want to be involved. They see the light at the end of the tunnel where we will move again. And so people are wanting to invest in that time. And it's actually a really great moment to test out the relationship ahead of time on really strong grounds. So that's how I've been approaching it.
Right. And Tom, maybe you can give us the perspective. You know, you've made investments, or your company's made investments in folks. How are you helping your investments find talent?
Yeah, it's a great time to look for talent these days if you're looking to recruit, because there's more people freeing up. So, you know, one of the values that we bring to our portfolio companies is connecting them with new talent, with customers, partnerships, etc. We've got a online job posting board where our companies post openings and people can go there. You go to NassauStreetVentures.com and go to the top to the ABG website, the Alumni Venture Group website, to resources, or and it's under there. And we also have a expert community platform where people with skills that they want to share with our portfolio companies can post there. And we've got a team that works to connect those people directly with our portfolio companies. So if you've got some free time and want to connect with one of our portfolio companies, you can register on that expert community platform also.
Okay, great. Anybody else want to jump in on that, or keep going here? Let's talk a little bit about supply chain. So, we've got, some companies here that are selling a product, and I promised Daniel, we're going to come back to you and let you talk about what it is from a provider point of view. But for the folks that are, selling a product, how has the situation that we're in now changed your ability to get product, to be able to service customers that you might have, and what does that ultimately do for your timeline of growing your business?
I can start. Our fabric production begins overseas, and we import the fabric and then cut and sew it here in the U.S. So, with our supply chain, I'll say we've been on high alert for the past year or so, just in the context of tariffs, and I'm really keeping a close eye on that. But with a distributed supply chain, it really gives us a lot of flexibility, because in this country, we can hold inventory of our raw materials basically, and our finished goods, and then even create those finished goods almost on demand in response to sizes that are needed and products that are needed. So so we haven't seen a big disruption to our supply chain yet, specifically from COVID. It seems that things in Asia are starting to get back to normal, which is really encouraging. So we'll just continue to keep a close eye on it.
Okay, Stephanie or Stuart, thoughts on your supply chain and its impact?
Sure. I handle the majority of our supply chains and operations. So my experience in the past has been building supply chains for footwear in particular. In the past year and a half, we actually picked up and moved our full supply chain from southern China, which is where the majority of footwear manufacturing is actually done these days, and relocated it to Brazil. There's a really strong manufacturing background there with like Nine West and Cole Haan and some of the really big footwear companies in the 90s and early aughts. And because we're a sustainable company and really focusing again on recycling, a lot of that material innovation is happening in Europe and in the US. So also a distributed supply chain. We have a manufacturers out of Milan and out of Spain. So I've been really close contact with those teams, especially as COVID has sort of hit those markets. And what we've just done and kind of the way that we built this is similar to Allison, is we've been able to hold a lot of raw inventory for fabrics and for materials actually at our factory in Brazil, and been able to kind of respond to demand and have a like platformed materials there where we can work into. And then kind of locally, what we've done as we've brought inventory into the US, we have a pretty distributed supply chain on how to fulfill. So we've got micro warehouses. We work with a company called Ojai that does same day delivery. So we're actually able to deliver same day in New York and in LA. So have inventory in both of those markets. Had a mild like panic moment when Trump tweeted that New York was going to shut down, and so I never thought I'd have to move inventory out of Manhattan, but ended up moving stuff up to New Hampshire as well to fulfill that, and then have a larger partner that's out of New Jersey. So that's all just to say that we have different touch points, so that should there be a need to shut down one of these facilities or two of these facilities, we'd still be able to fulfill orders direct to consumer. I think that's the customer for us that's still needing product immediately, where a lot of our wholesale partners have a bit more flexibility in what that delivery window looks like, given sort of the landscape and how stores are functioning right now. So kind of have hedged on both sides of that, have tried to make sure that we can still fulfill and deliver and don't have to shut things down, and then have been able to pull up and platform materials in the off chance that some of these commercial shipping lanes kind of get shut down.
Stephanie, thought?
Yeah, so we get our components from Asia. We've had no real issues there. Luckily, we had ordered inventory kind of pre everything happening, and we do all of our manufacturing in Bozeman, Montana. So if anything, it's given our manufacturers who are also investors in us more business, because a lot of companies have gone from Asia to the U.S. and their decision making. So it's just strengthened that, and since they're investors, it's I'm happy for them as a company, and that's amazing that it's bringing them business, and also as a mutual benefit, it's really great for us. So fingers crossed, we haven't really felt any disruptions. And in terms of fulfillment, we've always done it internal, because our products and our packaging and the experience is very customizable. Since we have a UV laser, we do all of the customized labels on. And so it feels good knowing that really nothing can throw a wrench into that, since it's very time consuming on our end, but definitely something that we have full A to Z control over.
All right, great. Daniel, from the perspective of the provider side, as you start to think about, growing your business and trying to open doors and get people to brands to use your platform and your service, how do you pitch? How do you get yourself ready to go in to somebody and explain your value proposition? How do you get it tight enough where you can, get somebody to understand it quickly? It's not particularly complicated. It could be, depending upon how deeply people want to get into it. But, ultimately, how do you build that pitch to tell people what your value prop is?
Yeah, I think it really depends on use case, but primarily what we say is that, we can save the business money immediately on significant interchange fees that are coming from open network card associations and any headaches dealing with cash management. Now with, a lot of the brick and mortar businesses not operating, it's primarily speaking with businesses in the B2B, e-com, charity, medical services, trade services that are still operating but are sensitive to the fees that cost them significant amounts. And if we can go in there and explain that you can save 2 to 3% and eliminate swipe fees from your transaction base, well, maybe that's keeping folks employed at that business and helping them immediately. For us as a service provider, we really think about it as being able to scale and be flexible. So depending on implementation, type of business, we can really create a customized experience, but it's still running through our payment rail that's going to save that business money. And as a result, if it's a retail and e-com business, maybe, repurpose a piece of that in cashback rewards. And that's fully customized as well. So just being flexible now more than ever, and, positioning it simply that, we're in a place to help and give money directly back to the business, and as a result, some of their customers as well.
Great, thanks. Tom, in your business from an investment perspective, are there particular verticals that you guys focus on in particular, and might those verticals change for what you might look for coming out of this?
Well, our strategy is to create a diverse portfolio for our investors, an actively indexed portfolio of venture capital. We purposely invest across all industry sectors, investment stages, and geographies to create almost an index type exposure to the asset class. We're seeing that some sectors are not doing well, travel, et cetera, and some sectors are getting a uplift from the COVID-19. And so we're looking at those carefully and trying to take advantage of those where we can. We're keeping the diverse portfolio. We're thinking of launching a new fund that might have a focus just on some of the companies that get this upwind from COVID-19. So that might be a separate fund that we would launch to focus on that.
Okay, we'll come back to fundraising for the 4 early stage companies in a bit. One of the questions, actually for Dan, maybe we'll just jump in. And how did you come up with the idea for the virtual tip jar?
We actually saw that some of our merchants were using some of the peer-to-peer platforms to accept payments for virtual tip jar. So in theory, those platforms aren't designed to accept business payments. It's against their terms, and there's no KYC, know your customer process with those peer-to-peer payments. So as a result, we kind of sent a quick note out to all the merchants on their platform, asked them if they would want to opt into this service. It aligned well with our online payment solution that was launching. We just created a self-pay experience, so the person paying could select the donation amount. We launched it with a few of our merchants quickly and then got really great reception to it and just expanded to all of ours, put it up on our website quickly, and then announced it to all of our channels. So, we really just reacted to the space and the requests we were getting. And thankfully, we launched that within 3 days of the initial request.
As early stage, companies and founders of businesses, even before, this crisis started, what were some of the challenges that you guys were facing in your business? I've talked to each of you individually, even before we put this webinar together. It was a very common thread. We'll see if it comes out today. Very common thread about what you were all dealing with. But tell us what your real tough spots and challenges were. Steph, you want to start off?
Man, it's a vast question.
That's why we started with you. Put you on the spot right off the bat.
One of the many challenges. Well, I guess this is particular to our company. I raised a pre-investment round from all angels, not friends and family, just New York founders and investors, which they're a great group of advisors as well. But for a product company, it's very lean budget. And so it's definitely been interesting to really kind of take the path that companies like Swell have walked, but very much not the path that, many of the big D2C companies we're all familiar with now have taken. So it's the challenge has been, how do we get out there and how do we build community with a smaller budget? And so I think we've been very inspired by companies who have started off with community, which I believe Stuart was talking about before, how to really build that group of individuals. So we've referenced companies like Swell, who in the beginning really seeded in direct spaces like yoga. For us, it would be flight attendants. It would be the fitness community. So the push is always, how can we get out there from a more guerrilla approach? And so that's something that we were kind of really focused on pre-COVID and still are focused on.
Okay. Next victim.
I guess I'll chime in. As a solo founder, I think my biggest challenge is always deciding where best to spend my time. I'm sure everyone else on the phone would agree that our time is truly our most valuable asset. With a product like ours, it's vetting. There are so many different directions that we could take that, leaning heavier on the D2C versus leaning heavier on the hotel and spa partnership. I think that's just sort of been an ongoing challenge for me to understand, where we as a company should focus, and then also where I should focus as the founder versus, finding folks on the team or finding new talent to take up new efforts. So really just that sort of focus and knowing where to invest my time is an ongoing challenge.
Great, thank you. Stuart or Dan, or, Tom, you must have challenges too.
Challenging time. Dan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a crazy time. We're working harder than ever here, and trying to support our portfolio companies, and finding new ways of doing things. But I think it's difficult time for many, but this is a great opportunity. We're improving the operations all around, increasing our focus, cutting out things we didn't need to be doing. It's wonderful to get this. It's a horrible time, but it's wonderful to get this opportunity to rethink the business and refocus and tighten down.
Right. Stuart, you wanted to jump in on the question of challenges. Maybe you're on mute now.
Guys, I'm so sorry. We ordered a Peloton and it just arrived, and so we're trying to figure out where to put it. I'm like doing two things at one time. Sorry, which I'm actually pumped about because I can't wait to actually exercise and get some cardio. But the question about before and what we were focused on, Stephanie, you're right. It's very much figuring out marketing channels was our big focus. So my co-founder and I, deep experience in product and specialty retail and supply chain, not as much experience in marketing. And so we're sort of doing two or three different things. One, and we're still actively working on this, is like building out an in-house marketing team. And I know the question was asked, like, how do we hire? A lot of that is like, we built job descriptions, obviously we've posted those, but it's just pinging it to our entire network of investors and friends, and literally plugging it everywhere we go. So if anybody is looking to join a small startup team to do brand marketing or the like we're looking to hire for that. And so building out that marketing team to really address those needs was something that we were focused on. And then the second part that kind of couples nicely with that is figuring out ways to move up the business away from customer acquisition just online and through like your social platforms of like Instagram, Facebook, and Google, towards more organic, lower customer acquisition channels that were more authentic and replicable and scalable as well. So how do you bring customers offline? Like what does out of home marketing look like? How do you really begin driving word of mouth marketing? Because Facebook and Instagram are just kind of continuing to be on the rise. We've only been in market for about 4 months. So we launched into the teeth of Black Friday, which was like evidently the most expensive time to acquire a customer in the history of Facebook ever. So we were born in a very expensive customer acquisition cost time, and have really been focused on how to allocate budget towards other marketing initiatives outside of just paid, but still continuing to get good, legitimate traffic to the site. So those are the things that we were working on kind of pre-COVID, and it's still very much the case. It's just, instead of clever ways to do out-of-home marketing, it's now more clever ways to build community online. And so I alluded to it earlier, but it's Slack groups that we've launched, and this like larger innovation incubator where it's like creative,
Stuart,
more community.
there we go.
Can you
Go
hear me?
ahead, Stuart.
Yeah, and other channels too, like Zoom, other types of programming that allows us to kind of build community and move it away from just Facebook and Google, Instagram.
Right. So just while you're still talking, Stuart, there was a question. Have you done any, and anybody else can answer, have you thought of TV advertising? Maybe it's too early in your life cycle for that, but if so, have you? Yes,
sort of. So we haven't decided to run like a national like television ad spot, because those are incredibly expensive. And
let's go for the Super Bowl. Come on.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Evidently they're cheap now by, I don't know, who knows? Maybe next year. You'll see my face on there. What we've looked at and what our marketing team has kind of called attention to are display ads through streaming services, which is something that we're looking to explore as well. So if you look at Hulu, or you look at, it's not Netflix because they don't run ads, but like these other services that do have ads, that's something that we're considering looking at as well. So exploring other channels like through streaming, so not necessarily like that, but then also looking at like podcast and radio too. So I know it's not directly television, but looking at other marketing channels. And really it's just a matter of creating a hierarchy around budget and around like immediate return on ad spend. And then like what the lift is from creative. Like we would have to go shoot a commercial, whereas like for Facebook or for podcasts, like we can repurpose ads and just kind of do audio and talk over it.
Right. We'll come back to, I want to come back to the go to market stuff and some of the advertising, but just to get Dan back into the swing here. Dan, what you're trying to do is really break into a new market. and be a disruptor. So how do you do that? I think you have some education to do of people that are going to make decisions, not only the consumer to use or to ask for Aeropay, but also for brands to carry it. How have you thought about that? Not only do you have a product, but you now have to explain it.
Yeah, and I think that goes to the previous question as well. Primarily focus on in-store payments and how we educate business owners on how we can help them and how they should message their customers at the point of sale is definitely something we had to think through and operationalize. And we spent a lot of time on that, how to activate stores, local stores and chambers of commerce, local institutions to be able to share the Aeropay benefit story. Quickly segueing that story into a bigger picture, whether that's, e-commerce, B2B, charity donations, that's a kind of quick turnaround. And I think the biggest thing for us is to be able to move quickly where the winds are taking us. And that means that ultimately elevating the story into saying, hey, this is going to be cheaper, faster, more secure than the existing payment methods. Implement this in whether it's a co-branded, single branded, Aeropay branded way, whether that's an e-commerce button, a custom link, an integrated SDK into an application. We're going to move, our platform is flexible and we have to move in that direction. The other side, that we alluded to in the go-to-market really is embracing partnerships as much as possible. So the payments industry is definitely based on rev share, kind of basis point, incentive programs. And we can do at least as good as everybody else, if not better on that. And we are having lots of discussions with distribution channels in the payment space to offer Aeropay as a default payment method into integrated POS, integrated e-commerce, and to create those incentive structures that exist in the payments world. So it's both an education, in the kind of typical business owner, company CEO space, but it's also in the general kind of payments landscape. And that's what we're really working on right now in the time of COVID-19, is to really focus on how these savings can both help businesses, but also now create a new revenue stream for whether it's regional banks or national banks, and then kind of really turning that into customer pull through at these businesses, whether it's B2B, online, in store.
Great, thank you. We had a question, are any of these businesses operating a physical location? And I think the answer is no, in a stay-at-home municipality. I don't think these businesses would be deemed essential. This person is advising businesses with this challenge. So nobody has a physical location, right? The question was, who has any insights on advising businesses with this challenge? Anybody have a personal point of view that they want to throw out there?
We're not in a physical location, but one of our warehouses is in Manhattan, which is currently stay-at-home. I don't know, stay-at-home, shelter-in-place. So our warehouse workers are deemed essential, but I wouldn't necessarily say delivering sneakers is an essential. So we've had a lot of conversations with all of our warehouse partners on how they're handling safety and a change in protocol. Everybody that we're talking to, and that's kind of within our teams, are all running skeleton crews and have put together in place like temperature checks before and after work, put together like using masks. If they don't have N95, then using just general masks, gloves, hand washing, making sure that things are being disinfected, making sure that there's like less contact with people coming in and picking up packages. That's from like small micro warehouses that we're working with all the way to larger warehouses too. So I know that's not explicitly stores, but I imagine that's probably what a lot of people are doing that are running physical stores, is either shipping out of the back or doing pickup and takeout out of the back, and kind of trying to handle health and safety the same way.
Right. Okay, great. Hopefully that answered the question. One of the challenges that I've heard, oftentimes from the early stage folks is that, they don't quite have enough or the right mentorship. And I've been very lucky. I've been able to partner with a number of early stage businesses, and certainly not to say that I'm the right mentorship, but perhaps my experience has, been able to share some mistakes that I've made along the way. But where are you getting your mentorship from? Who are you looking at for guidance and support as you build your businesses? Take anybody that wants to answer.
I guess I'll go first. I've always really tried to maintain a broad network of mentors. I mean, for me, everything from textile experts and manufacturers to skin science experts, so really a broad range of experts on the marketing and selling side. Much like I think Stuart mentioned, I am also not a marketer by training. And so, there I've worked really intentionally to meet people who know how to do marketing, specifically of consumer products. I'm based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's not a core strength of our region. And so I come up to New York as often as I can and attend events and network as much as I can to really, intentionally grow that base of marketing mentors for Nollapelli.
Yeah, I would say that cold back before I'd raised money, I think a lot of tapping into any semblance of a network, and then obviously building that network and asking everyone to connect me with someone else led to a lot of incredible advisors. We have, people who are like VP of product design at Aeropay, digital marketing specialists, and trying to staff up in areas that I think I personally am have a lot of areas to grow in. And so that really helped me create a good structure for going to go fundraise. And a lot of those individuals I had cultivated relationships with then became investors and now are, continue to be strong advisors. But yeah, I think we are very lucky to have a lot of digital marketing kind of gurus or specialists be a part of Cadence, and that has really helped me because it's not my area of expertise. And it's, led us to be able to pass on that knowledge to people who can implement the day-to-day at Cadence. But I mean, Mark, I think we connected because you were so kind to offer your time on LinkedIn. And I think I don't even take advantage of that enough. I'm sure there are so many other kind experts who are offering their time. And I would like to work it into a weekly process of mine to be able to either reach out or take someone up on an offer of their area of skill, because I mean, you always learn so much from it. And then it obviously leads to wonderful other connections and opportunities like this one. So definitely a lot of room to grow on my end in that area as well. But I can definitely say without a group of advisors, I mean, we would be much worse off. So I'm very grateful.
Stuart, any thoughts from you or Daniel?
Yeah, definitely. Just to follow up on kind of what Stephanie said, investors, advisors, those groups of folks are essential. But, we've also kind of been part of accelerator programs, incubator programs. We're Chicago based, so we went through the second cohort of the 1871 Latinx incubator program, which is really exciting to see the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and 1871 come together to create an incubator for Latinx founders. So my family's from Argentina and Uruguay, and created a really kind of strong bond with the other folks in the cohort. It's just great to share what they're doing and understand kind of what they're going through. And peers can be just as much advisors as investors, board members, and advisory board. And we were just accepted to the Plug and Play FinTech Batch in Silicon Valley, which is another great program. Every week there's mentor sessions, for somebody, in payments and FinTech to be able to talk to the major incumbents is a real advantage. And so we develop kind of relationships with those folks as well as business development opportunities through that program. So definitely folks that are involved with the business, but then those programs have been essential for us.
Great, thanks. Stuart?
Yeah, we before we even really started the company, when we were self-funding, the first thing we did was go out and build a network of early advisors. And it was people throughout kind of the critical functions of the business, even in functions of the business that we had experience in. So whether it was design or product development, and really just trying to get people around the business. It's footwear is interesting. It's kind of like a bunch of old shoe dogs, and Mark, I'm sure you know this. And so it's not like you can just walk into a shoe factory and be like, hey, like, can you make 2,000 pairs for me? Like, these guys are cranking out like 40,000 pairs a day. So having like introductions to production, having introductions to sourcing, really critical for us early on. And we just extended that through all functions of the business. I don't know if I've ever like formally asked someone to be a mentor. I think I've just had them come on and like be someone that I talk to, and then just kind of slip in that, oh, like, hey, this is my mentor. So introduce them as such. And so that's kind of been our strategy as we've sort of grown the company. And continue to bring people on and like really index on advisors, and some of them become investors in ways, and really trying to bring great people around it. So, and it helps with fundraising. It's kind of really cyclical. It helps with introductions and production. It helps with scaling things. So, yeah, it's been really valuable, and trying to start with like our initial networks with college and in the city, and just trying to take as many meetings as possible with it to start.
You know, I know it sounds crazy, but in the conversations that I've had over time, you know, the folks like all of you on this call that have been open to what, you know, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and being able to talk to people, you know, wow, that's a whole new world out there. I didn't really even know that it existed. You know, you all have that kind of persona, and the businesses that I've seen be able to get off the ground and build and develop and build something that was in fact sustainable are all led by people that were willing to take advice and ask questions and identify the things they didn't know. So, you know, I think that's a really important thing. Tom, let's go back to your one deal a day and kind of investing. You've got to look at a lot of deals in order to be able to have confidence that you can, you know, kind of keep up that pace. So what do you look for in a business that ultimately is something that you want to kick the tires on, and then finally make a decision to make an investment?
Yeah, that one deal a day is not me personally. There's 45 investment professionals here, so I've got some help. I'm helping others. So your question is, what do we look for in a deal, Mark?
Yeah, what do you look for that, you know, says, yes, this is something we want to examine, and then after you have examined it, you know, what is it about that deal where you say, yep, we're going to make an investment?
Yeah, so, you know, we're in a fortunate position where we've got incredible deal flow. I'm always looking for more deals, so if you have something interesting, please contact me. But we're seeing thousands and thousands of deals. We're not like a little, you know, angel group seeing a few hundred deals. We see thousands of deals. So when I see thousands of deals, you know, the hot deals stand out. You know, disclosure, we invested in Thousand Fell with Stuart. And here's a guy who had run a company like this before. He's got the experience. The market was well defined. The plan was good. And we invested alongside a top tier VC. So when you see companies that are, you know, the CEOs have done it before, they've got the momentum, they're growing fast, it, you know, it really stands out. So we're seeing thousands of deals, and, you know, most of those are not gonna grow to be the next Amazon, right? But the hot ones, they stand out. So we look at, you know, the things that VCs traditionally look at. The three main categories is the management. You know, these people know what they're doing. The market, you know, if they do it right, is it a big enough market to be interesting? And the product is obviously going to be a good product. And then also we obviously look at the deal structure, and that's changing a lot these days. We're fortunate to be able to see some trends across venture capital community and what's changing in deal structures. We want to get good valuations and good deal terms. And then lastly, because our model is to co-invest, we look at who we're investing with, and we end up investing our deals alongside really the top tier VCs, Andreessen Horowitz, Sequoia, Bessemer, et cetera. So it's a little, disingenuous, a little trite to say, like, we just want the best deals. That's what we invest in.
Right. Well, that's great. And with respect for the brands here, when you think about your fundraising efforts, maybe you can talk a little bit about, we'll have each of you do it, your successes, your failures, kind of the process you went about to fundraise. If you haven't, tell us that. And specifically, Stephanie, maybe we'll go with you. We had a question. Would love to hear how Steph raised funding with her manufacturing partners and how that has worked out.
Yeah, so I think early on I had a few, in conversations I had, I mean, our first, I guess to back up really far, one of the first things we talked about on the call was how to find help. And when I was in our market research phase, I would do 10 calls. I would ask friends to introduce me to 10 people, and then I would get on phone call with them and then talk through everything with them and better understand the consumer. And so during one of those phone calls, I voiced that I was looking for an engineer. And then, I happened to find, a week later, I found our engineer. We had gone through about 10 engineers. Everyone said our product was too hard to make. And then we found our head of engineering, who's been with me since the very beginning. And so going from there, he used to work for our manufacturers, Plastic Design and Manufacturing in Montana. And a lot of people said early on to me, but they were confused why we hired an engineer. A lot of, product companies would go right to the manufacturers, but particularly for us, our product's really hard to manufacture. It has to be durable, sustainable, visually appealing. So it's a very delicate process trying to achieve a lot. And so I definitely could not have done it without our engineer. And so we were looking at Asia originally. And then one of our advisors from away said to us, well, why don't you talk to BDM? You should just have a conversation with them. And we rendezvoused at an airport and we connected with each other. And they were really interested in Cadence. They were looking to kind of get into the consumer space. And so we structured the deal in the way that, they told us how much they really wanted to invest and what that would kind of cover. So for us, it would cover through 2 product lines, all of the consulting costs for the tooling, the product development, the product improvement, and the QC. And so it's been great because it's created an aligned interest. I mean, we get on a call bi-weekly with our manufacturers. They're text away. My engineer's there almost every day and on the phone with them. And we've had nothing but an incredible experience. I mean, our lead time is, if we need, one time we really needed to turn around new product, and it was about a 24-hour lead time, which is pretty unheard of. And so it's, something I would definitely recommend if you can properly vet out the production facility and the individuals. But I've recommended to a lot of founders this facility as well.
Okay, great. Anybody else on fundraising? Allison, what have you done at this point?
Yeah, so we haven't formally raised any capital. We went through an accelerator, the Brandery in Cincinnati, which was fabulous. It's part of Generator, which is a larger Midwest family of accelerators. So highly recommend all of them. And that came with a nice investment. We got a little bit of regional development money from Pittsburgh in our early R&D days, but otherwise haven't officially launched a fundraising round. That was on the plans for this year. We'll see if we have to push that out a little further. But kind of similar to Stephanie, I think we struck a deal with our manufacturer. So we connected with our manufacturer through networking. I mean, when I was doing the early R&D for our fabrics, literally just asked everyone I met if they knew anyone who could make these kinds of fabrics and help us scale them up. And ultimately found our manufacturer. And after a few conversations, they quickly got very excited about this product that we had developed and the spaces that we were going after, that they stepped up with a deal to finance our entire supply chain for us. So, for us not having to tie up capital in inventory and in any of that supply chain has enabled us to kind of to use our own capital for growth. And so and that's been our strategy to this point. Now that we've got those early proof points and we've got, I'll say product market fit sort of loosely on the consumer side and on the hotel and spa side, we're at a point where we really would like to raise some capital to double down on marketing efforts. But yeah, that's been our path so far.
Stuart, you've done quite a bit in this area. Care to share?
Yes, happy to. And I don't know how deep we want to go, and we can continue to kind of field questions here if people want to know more, but we've raised 2 rounds of capital, an angel round and a pre-seed round. Tom mentioned that he was in our pre-seed round. That was actually led by BBGV, so Built by Girls Ventures. And then we're raising our Series Seed now, which was supposed to close at the end of March. And then you can imagine as the landscape has changed, it's kind of pushed out to the end of April, but have found some really good partners to come around that. What we've always done there is kind of a pretty standard playbook, but had some milestones in mind that we wanted to hit prior to going out to fundraise, whether that's sales, whether that's product development or product market fit. I think a lot of us have talked about that. And then we've targeted a list of funds that invest thematically and partners that invest thematically in companies like ours. And so that's just a couple different verticals, whether it's consumer, female founders, or it's in sustainable or impact companies as well. And so we've gone out and kind of targeted funds and family offices that invest there. And we're a little different. We want to build the company to be profitable. So we're first purchase profitable. So we were trying to move away from that model where it's like constantly raising venture capital every like 12 to 18 months in order to fuel this like crazy breakneck growth. A little slower growth plans for us. And so we've targeted partners that understand that and brought partners around the table. And retail is just different. It's not tech. I can't quickly scale it the way that I could SaaS or an app. So there's just cash flow and inventory considerations. So we brought partners around the table that understand that. And then kind of the mechanics of it, we probably talked to like 100 people to get like 4 people to say yes, which is taxing. And you hear a lot of no, which is fine. And it kind of confirms the things that you believe. And some things that we've done to kind of make that process really easy is obviously like decks and data rooms and financial models and white papers and all of the things that kind of go along with fundraising due diligence and making sure that that's all like ready and available to hand off to people. But yeah, I mean, and we've kind of navigated that landscape as we've gone on and raising on different instruments, whether it's convertible note or pricing out a round, and have brought on like previous investors help you kind of navigate that as you go forward too. So it's a nice sort of like trapeze from one round to the next in a way, but yeah, happy to kind of.
One of the commonalities that I've heard from early stage folks that have gone out to fundraise, after the initial, seed round and family round, they didn't realize how much time it was going to take for them to actually raise money. They're either marketers or they're product people or they're developing SaaS platforms. They don't fashion themselves and oftentimes as financial people. They know what their conviction is about their business, but they spend a lot more time than they expected answering questions from Tom. Daniel, what about you from a fundraising point of view?
Yeah, I think to Tom's point about, seeing folks kind of do it before, just some quick historical context. Mark and I met when, I was leading product at GP Shopper. Mark was at Steve Madden, and we built the Steve Madden app. So that was a great project, but as a result of many of those projects, having that success at that previous company and having folks watch you realize the vision and build, products like the Steve Madden app out, they, have that initial conviction in you as a first-time founder to be able to do it again and what you're going to do next. And so, for me personally, moving from New York to Chicago, starting an office from scratch, there's a lot of kind of the foundation and nature of building a business, having the tech background, and then leading solution engineering to actually sell the proprietary platform that exists. So it's not full-fledged kind of founder, the trapeze that Stuart was mentioning, but there's a lot of the kind of initial blocking and tackling that's needed. And luckily, a lot of the investors from that company, after it sold, knew who I was and were ready to jump into the next venture, which is Aeropay. So that's sort of how it's been for us. We've got a great, base of investors that believe in what we're doing, have backgrounds in, digital marketing, banking, fintech, payments, and are ready to see kind of something new come to this kind of old traditional incumbent market.
And just to add, I think I'm on the other side of the spectrum. I definitely don't come from a background of kind of having built something similar, but for anyone on this call that is interested in pursuing something for the first time, it's definitely possible. And so just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely, Stephanie. Not a prerequisite.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, I'm also a first-time founder.
Yeah.
We had a few questions, and it was also on my hit list. We talked a little bit about go-to-market, and I'll kind of break go-to-market into two pieces. One is first, and maybe we'll just quickly start with the three product brands, go-to-market from a channel point of view. So, direct-to-consumer, wholesale, your own retail, marketplaces. What are you thinking about the progression of how you bring your products to market? Whichever of you wants to. Stuart's busy with his Peloton. I know that. No.
No, I'm here and happy to talk about go-to-market. Yeah, if you'd like. We launched 4 months ago, so maybe it is pretty relevant for me to talk about it. And it's interesting. I tell all other of my founder friends that are about to launch that I would love to give my advice. I don't know if we did it the best way possible. If Thousand Fell turns out to be a huge success, I don't think that the story is going to be oh wow, look how those guys had this huge rocket ship launch. But I think for us, what we did with go-to-market was really focused kind of again on authentic core community and building kind of the meeting places online and the touch points for the brand that allowed customers to kind of come around the product early on and be actual brand advocates. And so we did a soft launch. It was press only, didn't roll out with big paid acquisition strategy. And so we're able to kind of build out a core customer base early on that we could then build off of. And so we had this group of advocates that rallied around us on social, that rallied around us when we had press releases, that rallied around us with sales, and then we're able to kind of drive initial word of mouth. So that was how we went and did it. And then kind of with website and marketing, all of that was us sort of building the plane as we were flying at that point. So constantly making updates to the e-commerce platform, constantly adding new marketing channels and new tracking and tech features into the tech stack. So it's all kind of a work in progress. I think the one thing I've learned is that nothing's perfect around launch. And I think this sort of go-to-market, we had this idea that we needed a million things perfect and in place and fleshed out. And what we really needed to do is we needed to bring this product we'd been working on for the better part of a year to life and have people begin working with it and engaging with it. And a lot of those bugs on the site or with critique on product or with packaging or with how things were being delivered or with how we were providing customer service, we were getting all of that in real time. And we could have spent 2 years trying to kind of hedge or flesh all that out, and really being in market is what helps you kind of iron a lot of that out. So that's been our experience.
Good. That's great. Allison or Stephanie?
Yeah, I guess I can just, very similar to Stuart, we really wanted to create and build a community of people who can be brand cheerleaders authentically. And so we really seeded product among, as I mentioned earlier, flight attendants, fitness influencers, models who are transitioning their makeup throughout the day. I come from an outdoor pro athlete space, so climbers, surfers, that kind of background. And then at the same time, I've taken like a unique approach to influencers as well. We've actually reached out to some large individuals, micro but large in the space, who we think would actually have something genuine to say to their audience and that their audience would connect with. And we've kind of done an interesting equity structure, which has worked unbelievably well for us. And then, yeah, I would say, you know, also just continuing to work with other brands. I think Daniel mentioned earlier that some of the best advisors are founders. I'm really connecting to other founders in the space, doing giveaways and partnerships has been extremely helpful for our go-to-market. And then I guess this is specific to our brand, but you know, all the other products in this, it's kind of a new product in this in the space actually. So education was huge for us. So creating content, creating a strong social media strategy was key, because really everything else is super functional. So spending that time to build a really beautiful site and way we can communicate with customers. But I definitely agree, you could work on perfecting something for years and years. So at some point it was time to just say, let's go. And I'm definitely glad that we did when we did. We've for context, been launched for about 2 months at this point.
Well, building relationships with you all have cost me money, because, you know, I need new bedding now apparently, and I need, you know, Cadence containers, and, you know, I've got a long list of people that are looking for 1,000 felt sneakers, and the only thing that's going to benefit me, I think, is Daniel's lower payment processing costs for me on all those transactions. Allison, your thoughts on go-to-market?
Well, I just wanted to underscore what Stephanie just said about the value and the power of partnering with adjacent brands. So that's definitely something that we've doubled down on in the last month or so. And for us, that's a skincare companies. It's even partnering with our hotel and spa clients that have membership bases on their own. You know, their members can't currently come and enjoy their facilities, but they look to keep in touch with them. And so how can we partner and share education and share product? So partnering is really been a big focus for us in the last 4 weeks.
All right. And Dan, from a go-to-market, you know, what are you thinking about? You know, how do you grow this business? How do you get a foothold?
Yeah, and just to touch on kind of going to market as fast as possible to learn the most you can. You know, we chose a pretty interesting market to bring a brand new payment method to when it comes to, you know, brick and mortar businesses in the retail restaurant space, in, you know, diverse urban environments and different use cases with, you know, without a consumer incentive initially was pretty tricky. You know, you have things like operational details, POS, you know, differences, different landscapes when it comes to store environments. So I probably think that we chose probably, you know, the hardest type of business to go to market with, and then quickly transitioned and built a platform that could, you know, accommodate that use case. And as a result, built out the things that could expand, you know, our method to a more widely used payment method. So consumer incentive, you know, is a must-have now. The speed of settlement, right, to settle next day versus 3 to 5 days compared to a card, avoiding cash management in spaces like the cannabis space, for example. So it's opening lots of doors for us. And as we look at scale, you know, touching on the partnerships, incentive structure, and bringing our payment method to new use cases like, you know, direct to consumer e-commerce environments, you know, B2B trades, whatever it is now that could leverage our, you know, speed, settlement, affordability on interchange, and then security, because we don't store any personal information, you know, through the point of sale. You know, if you compare that to card not present transactions, that's what that interchange fee is for, you know, the chargeback risk. So quickly extending the benefits of our payment method.
That's great. We had a question. How have you shifted your digital marketing strategies in the wake of COVID-19? And based upon that, what effect has that had on paid social and search? And I imagine that for those of you that are, you know, doing advertising, paid social, you know, was probably a big piece of this. So what's changed for you?
Yeah, I can jump in. So we're obviously a company that is heavily movement focused, so we have scaled back paid. But at the same time, it's opened up time to really focus on many other channels, as I mentioned earlier, TikTok. And then there's always so much room to build. So we're going to take the time to start testing. At the same time, it's the cheapest. It's a cheaper time to run paid social. So at the same time, we're kind of implementing a strategy to test, so we can come out of this better understanding the consumer and what works creatively. So we've scaled back, but at the same time are using the time to examine and be able to execute efficiently when we can scale back up.
Anybody else change their approach on advertising?
We have quite considerably, actually. So for the first 2 or 3 weeks of the COVID shutdown, we actually turned off paid digital advertising completely. It was a personal decision that my co-founder and I made. Honestly, it just came down to the fact that we didn't feel like it was right to be marketing to people just kind of in a time of crisis. And so we instead shifted a lot of that focus towards value add content and opening up more transparency to how we as founders were handling the process, and then what the brand and the community was all about. So I don't know if it's fortunate, but part of our core tenet is building a better tomorrow. And so really being able to rally people around that. So we have shifted considerably, starting to turn paid back on as sort of there's more certainty in kind of what the future holds. But in those first couple of weeks when things were really up in the air and when people were dealing with shelter in place and they were turning to social more as a way to get information and to kind of be entertained, we kind of took the marketing aspect out of it. And in terms of search, we still have run our same playbook. Search is part of it, but a smaller part of it, and happy to kind of get into the nitty gritty of marketing as needed. But that's kind of been the biggest change.
Allison, are you doing much advertising at this point?
So we had actually changed our paid strategy probably about 6 weeks ago. I can't say that we had a crystal ball. It was just, we had done some experiments with paid search and social. At our budget, we weren't seeing a good return on investment. So we had decided to pull that, like I said, about 6 weeks ago, and really focus more on our partnerships and our hotel and spa, supporting them. And so, yeah, in hindsight, it was a really smart decision for us because it enabled us to really reserve our cash, and we'll see kind of how we come out of this and where we go from there.
Okay, Dan, I'm guessing you're not doing any advertising digitally at this point?
Yeah, I was just going to say, this isn't a customer acquisition strategy, but I think right now, touching on the sensitivity point, just checking in with your network, and, everybody is sensitive to what's going on, and just being a human today, I think, is more important than ever. And just doing that, checking in, seeing where people are, and, naturally conversation will come up that's probably, wanting to be outside of the virus and the current situation you're in. And, naturally you'll start to talk about other things and see, new ways you could help people out. And that's what really happened with the virtual tip jar. It was just checking in on our merchants. Hey, how you guys hanging in there? What are you going to, how are your employees dealing with the situation? Different neighborhoods in Chicago. And they said, hey, how's Aeropay? Is there any way, you guys could help us? And then naturally things will start to evolve. So it's not customer acquisition, but, just checking in, being personal is key today.
All right. We had a question. By the way, those were all really good answers. Thank you. We had a question about the CARES Act and whether or not any of the companies that are represented here today, and Tom, I'd open this up to you as well from your investments, whether or not any of them have taken advantage of the CARES Act, and what challenges, if you have you faced? So I see Allison smiling. You want to start?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we, I don't know, I feel like just as a founder, I've been inundated with resources and with support. because those legislations were really, changing and subject to interpretation. And so it's been, that's been a really interesting 2 weeks in that regard. Yes, absolutely. We put in all the applications that we could. We've also seen several new grants pop up in the last 2 weeks, which is really, really just heartwarming and exciting that folks who have been very successful see that as a really tangible way that they can help by supporting entrepreneurs.
One of those grants was one that I had mentioned to you that I seen on NBC. The founder of Spanx was doing something, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah, that's one example. There were a few others that we've applied to in the last 2 weeks. So, yeah, we're looking at kind of not leaving any stone unturned in terms of other ways to access capital at this time.
Right. Anybody else?
Yeah, just to add to the CARES Act, I think you're seeing the banking industry really step up right now. I think there's a stigma around the value and activity of the industry, and given the short time frame, quick action, and uncertain I would say criteria by which you can get the loans, the forgivable loans. There's been a lot of information. We've seen, our banking partners, our legal partners, our accounting partners step up, inform themselves, and send out mass emails. I'm sure the other founders on the webinar have seen this as well. So just quick shout out and props to how fast a lot of the folks in those spaces have, taken action and supported, the startup entrepreneurial community.
Anybody else take advantage of CARES at this point? Either Stephanie or Stuart, or any of the businesses you're involved with, Tom?
Yeah, I recommend everyone apply for that. It's first come, first serve. It's still being rolled out. Not quite sure who will be available, who will be able to take advantage of it, but I would start the process.
Yeah, we've
cheap
put,
money or free money.
Yeah, we put our application in with our bank as well. We were with B of A, so like Friday was kind of a hectic day, but we're able to kind of get everything in over the weekend. So TBD.
Yeah, we've applied as well. It's been interesting on the grant side. We're running into a lot of, we're seeing, like, for example, the Red Backpack Fund. They really are only considering people who have W-2 employees versus contractors, and we base a lot of our team. We do have a Cadence, team and family. It's very tight knit, but everyone is pretty much a contractor. So we're kind of running into that through a lot of the grants that we're looking into. But yeah, like Allison, we're definitely making sure our eyes are on everything. So if I've missed anything here, please ping me and let me know. But that's kind of been our process.
Well, Stephanie, we're in exactly the same boat. My team also super tight knit and connected, but of the 1099 flavor. And but I think that Red Backpack Fund may be changing. I heard some rumblings last night. They pulled the application.
Oh, really?
Said they're rethinking it, and stay tuned. So sign up again to be alerted, or I'll let you know once I see that.
Thank you.
Yeah, cross fingers. Yeah, no, that's the value of founder forums. I'm in several female founder forums, and just sort of scanning those last night and seeing others frustrated, and then someone chimed in with that new piece of news. So I was super encouraged to see that. Yeah, cross fingers.
Right. Thank you for letting me know.
It's incredible.
But that's also been part of the challenge with the SBA programs.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know. The PPP, it seems like every lender, every bank is evaluating based on their own criteria. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, to be fair, they've rolled this out really, really quickly. And, from the time the legislation, I think, was put into place on the 27th or the 28th, they essentially had, sites up and running. I know Stuart mentioned B of A. I know Chase has been out there very aggressively. I mean, we're talking about, I think the first day B of A had $6 billion requested, or don't quote me on that, but some ridiculously high number. But anyway, we're getting to the bottom of the hour and the end of our time together. So let's just do a quick wrap up here. Each of you, do you have one piece of advice that you might want to share with each other or with the folks that are still listening or might listen in the days ahead about one thing about how to get out of this, one piece of advice once we're out of it, whatever it is you feel like would be interesting for the listeners.
I'll start. I'm not sure if this is a piece of advice, but something really fascinating that I just learned the other day. So in Chinese, and I'm not sure which Chinese language, but the symbols for crisis, there are actually two symbols for the English word crisis. The first symbol means danger, and the second symbol means opportunity, which I think is so fascinating. I firmly believe that in every crisis, there's an opportunity, and that also comes very much on the personal side, just an opportunity to sort of dig deep and discover or rediscover things about yourself and the people who live in your home with you. So that's just the attitude that we're taking at Nollapelli, that there is an opportunity here, not to take advantage, but to really emerge out of this a stronger company.
Great comment, Allison. Anybody else?
I'd echo that. Well said, Allison. I think big opportunity. I don't want to be too worrisome, but I don't think this is a V. This is not a matter of weeks. We've seen economic cycles like this, and this is, I'd prepare for years of a different economy here, and we'll get through the COVID crisis, but then the economy we're going to pick up, and so take advantage of it. Improve your focus, and through other crises, we've seen some great companies come out of it. Be one of those companies.
Stuart, Stephanie, Daniel, thoughts?
I don't have anything. I completely mirror Allison. Well said. I won't try and repeat anything quite as eloquent, but I guess very tactically, the two pieces of advice that really worked for me is it's been a great time to actually onboard interns. We have 6 interns, and it's given me time to kind of see the way, our organizational chart really, and I've kind of seen that all the key players, and I've structured it so that our engineer, our PR person, our marketer, and me all have a direct point of support, so we can more efficiently use our time on the strategy and execution side of things, while having incredible support from people who truly can. I think interns have a stigma about them if they're not super supportive, but if you go through the right and kind of more lengthy process of asking them maybe to do a task, it's definitely proven amazing to us. And then my other very tactical piece of feedback that continues to help me in my everyday process is Superhuman as an email platform. I find it so helpful, and it helps me get through my inbox at a much faster rate if you sit down and dedicate time to it and you have an affinity for keyboard shortcuts. So those are my 2 tactical pieces of advice that continue to support during this time.
Okay. So if there's nothing else, we'll let everybody get back 1 minute and 45 seconds in their really busy calendar. I'd like to thank Allison Howard, Stephanie Hahn, Stuart Ahlum, Daniel Muller, and Tom Meyer. I appreciate you guys all doing this. I think it was a really good session. The feedback comments from people have been really nice, and we appreciate everybody that listened and so many that stayed for the full 90 minutes. So stay well, everybody. Best of luck to you, and we'll be seeing you down the road. Okay, take care.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks,
you.
Mark.
Thanks, Mark.